There's this thing that happens in your early 20s where you're technically an adult, but you don't really feel like one yet. You're supposed to have it figured out, to know what you're doing. You're supposed to be building towards something, but mostly you're just trying to get through the week, trying to pay rent, trying to figure out if this is what life is supposed to feel like. And everyone's giving you advice, your parents, your professors, random people on the internet. They're telling you to network, to build your personal brand, to hustle, to find your passion, to invest early, to travel while you're young, to focus on your career, to enjoy your 20s because they go fast. And all of it sounds right, but none of it tells you what to actually do, like specifically today. So you end up doing what most people do. You just keep going. You go to work, school, or whatever it is you're doing. You scroll and you hang out with friends. You make plans you don't follow through on. You think about the future in this vague, abstract way that never quite becomes concrete. And then a year passes, then 2, then 5, and you look around and realize you're not that different from who you were at 18. You're older, sure, maybe you have a job now, but fundamentally, you're the same person with the same habits. So in this video, I'm gonna share 7 skills I wish I'd learned in my early 20s. The kind of skills no one really teaches you, but they quietly decide how your life turns out. I will break them down one by one in a simple and practical way, so you actually know what to do after watching this. So let's start with the first one. Skill number 1, how to manage your attention. Everyone talks about time management like it's the answer. Wake up early, use a planner, block your calendar. But time management doesn't matter if you can't control where your attention goes. You can block out 2 hours to work on something important, but if you spend those 2 hours half focused, checking your phone every 5 minutes, clicking between tabs, letting your mind wander, you didn't actually work for 2 hours. You just sat in front of your computer for 2 hours while your attention is somewhere else. This is the skill nobody teaches you. How to actually focus, how to sit with one thing for longer than your brain wants to, how to notice when your attention drifts and bring it back without judging yourself for drifting in the first place. And this is getting harder, by the way. You're growing up in the most distracted era in human history. Your brain has been trained since you were a teenager to expect constant stimulation, to switch between things rapidly, to never sit with boredom or difficulty or the discomfort of not knowing what to do next. So learning to manage your attention isn't just useful, it's essential. So pick one thing you're going to do with your full attention for 30 minutes and set a timer. Put your phone far from you, close all tabs except the one you need, and just do the thing. When your mind wanders, and it will, notice it and bring it back. That's the practice, noticing and returning over and over. Do this every day and gradually increase the time. The skill alone will put you ahead of 90% of people your age. Skill 2, how to learn anything quickly. You're going to change careers multiple times in your life. You're going to need skills you don't have yet. You're going to be in situations where you have to figure things out on your own. And the people who succeed aren't the ones who already know everything. They're the ones who can learn fast, but nobody teaches you how to learn. They just throw information at you and expect you to absorb it. And most people develop terrible learning habits. They reread things, highlight things, they cram the night before and passively consume information and hope it sticks. But none of that works. Not for real learning. What actually works is active recall and spaced repetition. Active recall means testing yourself instead of reviewing. Don't reread your notes, close the book, and try to remember what you just read. Don't watch a tutorial twice. Watch it once, then try to do the thing yourself without looking. Your brain learns by retrieving information, not by consuming it. Every time you force yourself to remember something, you strengthen that memory. Every time you passively review, you trick yourself into thinking you know it because it looks familiar. Spaced repetition means reviewing information at increasing intervals. Not all at once. You learn something today, review it tomorrow, then 3 days later, then a week later, then a month later. This is how you move information from short-term memory to long-term memory. This is how you actually retain things. And you can apply this to anything. Languages, coding, history, skills, whatever you're trying to learn. Learn this skill now and every other skill becomes easier to acquire. Skill 3. How to talk to anyone, including people above you. Most people your age are terrified of talking to people who are older, more experienced, or more successful than them. They'll network with their peers all day, but put them in a room with someone who's actually accomplished something and they freeze. They get awkward, and they don't know what to say. They default to small talk, or they just avoid the interaction entirely. And I get it. It's intimidating. These people have done things you haven't, and you don't want to sound stupid or waste their time. But what you need to understand is that most successful people are not sitting around judging you. They're just people. And most of them actually enjoy talking to younger people who are curious and ask good questions. The skill you need to learn is how to have a real conversation with someone regardless of their status or experience. And it's simpler than you think. Be curious, ask questions, actually listen to the answers instead of waiting for your turn to talk. Don't try to impress them with what you know. Impress them with what you want to learn. Just be direct and ask them, I'm trying to learn about X. You've done Y. Could I ask you a few questions? And most people will say yes. And even if they say no, you're not worse off than if you never asked. Try this once a week. Talk to someone you wouldn't normally talk to. A professor, a senior person at your company, someone who works in a field you're interested in. Not to network in that gross transactional way, just to have a conversation, to learn something. Do this for a year and your entire professional trajectory will change. Skill 4, how to create content. You don't need to be an influencer, you don't need to go viral or need millions of followers, but you do need to learn how to put your ideas into the world in a way that people can see them. Because the reality is that this generation doesn't get jobs the way previous generations did. You don't just send in a resume and hope someone calls you back. The people who get opportunities are the people who are visible, the people who write, who make things, who share what they're learning or building or thinking about. This could be writing threads on Twitter, making YouTube videos, writing a newsletter, building projects and documenting them. Doesn't matter what format. What matters is that you're creating evidence that you exist and that you can think. And I know what you're thinking, but I don't have anything interesting to say. Wrong. You just haven't practiced saying it yet. Everyone starts bad. Everyone's first video is awkward. Everyone's first piece of writing is rough. The difference between people who build an audience and people who don't isn't talent. It's that the people who build an audience kept going after the first awkward attempt. Skill 5, how to have difficult conversations. Most people in their 20s avoid conflict like it's a disease. Someone does something that bothers you and you don't say anything. You just internalize it, or you complain to other people about it, or you let it build up until you explode, or ghost the person entirely. A friend owes you money? You don't bring it up because it's awkward. Your roommate is being inconsiderate and you just deal with it. Your boss is overworking you and you suffer in silence. And I get it. Difficult conversations are uncomfortable, they feel confrontational. You don't want to be the person who causes tension or makes things weird, but here's what happens when you avoid these conversations. Resentment builds, relationships deteriorate. You end up in situations that could have been resolved with one honest conversation months ago, and the longer you avoid this skill, the harder it gets. So learn this now while the stakes are relatively low. So here's the framework, and be direct and specific. Don't attack the person, address the behavior. Don't wait until you're furious or passive aggressively hint at the problem and hope they figure it out. Just say the thing. Hey, when you do X, it makes me feel Y. Can we figure out a way to handle this differently? It's uncomfortable the first few times, but then it becomes normal. And once it's normal, your relationships get better, your boundaries get clearer, and you stop wasting energy on situations that could be resolved with words. This skill will save you from years of unnecessary stress. Skill 6, how to use AI as a tool. Here's something most people your age are getting wrong. They're either ignoring AI completely or using it to avoid thinking, and both are mistakes. AI is not going away because it's not a trend. It's not something you can opt out of and still remain competitive. In 5 years, knowing how to use AI effectively will be like knowing how to use Google or email. It'll just be expected. But most people are using it wrong. They're asking ChatGPT to write their emails, their essays, and their cover letters. They're using it to replace their thinking instead of enhancing it. And that makes them worse because they're not learning. They're not developing their own problem-solving ability, their own critical thinking. The skill you need to learn is how to use AI as a thinking partner. Use it to brainstorm, to check your logic. Use it to get unstuck when you're struggling with something. Use it to learn faster by asking it to explain concepts in different ways until one clicks. But don't use it to do the work for you. Don't copy paste AI output and call it yours. Don't let it atrophy your ability to think through problems on your own. Here's a good rule. If you're using AI to avoid learning something, you're using it wrong. If you're using it to learn something faster or think about it more clearly, you're using it right. Learn this distinction now, because the people who figure out how to use AI as a genuine tool are going to have a massive advantage over people who either ignore it or become dependent on it. Skill 7, how to be alone without distracting yourself. This is the one nobody talks about, but it might be the most important. You're probably never alone with your thoughts anymore. Even when you're physically alone, you're not actually alone. You've got your phone, you've got something playing in the background, you've got the internet feeding you an endless stream of content. And I'm not saying that's bad. What I'm saying is that you've probably never developed the skill of just being without input, without distraction. And that matters, because the voice in your head, the one that knows what you actually want, what you actually care about, what's actually wrong or right in your life, that voice is quiet. It gets drowned out by everything else. You can't hear it when you're constantly consuming. You can't hear it when you're always distracted. You only hear it in silence. And if you never practice silence, you lose access to that voice. You lose access to your own intuition, your own thoughts, your own sense of what matters. So learn to be alone. Just be present with yourself, with your thoughts. Go for a walk without headphones. Sit in a room without your phone. Let yourself be bored. Let your mind wander. This is uncomfortable at first. Your brain will resist. It'll feel itchy, like you should be doing something. But if you push through that, you start to hear yourself again. You start to know what you actually think instead of just repeating what you've absorbed from other people. And that self-knowledge, that ability to be alone with yourself without needing constant distraction, that's the foundation of everything else, because you can't build a life that's actually yours if you don't know what you want. So these are the skills that determine whether you spend your 30s playing catch up or building on a foundation you laid in your 20s. And the brutal truth is that most people your age won't learn these skills. They'll spend their 20s the same way they spent their late teens, reacting to whatever's in front of them, scrolling, consuming, drifting. And that's fine, that's their choice, but you have a different choice available. You can use these years, these weird in-between, not quite adult years, to build something that will pay dividends for the rest of your life. By the time you're 25, you'll be a completely different person, just because you built the foundations that most people don't build until they're forced to. You just need to build the skills that will make everything else possible, and the rest will follow.